You're listening to SuperPower Mommas on the SuperPower Up podcast, the show that embraces the art of soulful parenting.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to SuperPower Mommas, and I'm Laura Greco, and I am so excited to be with you today as we talk on the topic of knowing your self-worth matters. I have Wendy Perrotti with me, and I just love Wendy. I've known her for, I guess about a year, right, Wendy?
Yeah.
Yeah, and she is an ICF credentialed and professional certified coach. She's a speaker and a trainer of over 25 years of experience in helping individuals and groups nationwide to affect change in themselves and others, which is really the key part of this. And I'm so excited to have you with us, Wendy. She's also a mom of 2 children. So welcome to the show and welcome everyone who's listening.
Thanks, Laura. I'm really excited to be here.
Good. Well, I'm excited to have you. So Wendy, we always start off our shows by asking what your superpower is. So what's your superpower? Well, I actually ask it as a superpower, my mama superpower. So what is your superpower?
Yeah, I would say if I had to break it down to my mama superpower, It is seeing my kids as whole in the moment and not sort of projecting or future casting what this moment might bring. And it was a hard won superpower. I didn't come by it naturally.
Okay. So seeing your children as whole and complete with nothing else going on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so easy, I think, as moms to see what your kids are doing or how they're showing up and project what that might mean for next month or next year or 20 years from now. And once we go down that fear road, we're completely disconnected from them, and they feel it. Even when we're not reacting on that, they feel it. So having taught myself to kind of dial that back and say, this is the person who is this little person who's here with me right now, and just being able to see them fully and love them where they were at helped so much in communicating, especially as they got older.
Yes. Well, that is a really, it's a great superpower to hone because really it's a foundational in the relationship that you share with your children. Am I right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I would love to know how you take this superpower and its use for you as a parent first.
Yeah. I think when I started to realize where I was doing it and where I wasn't doing it, my son was, my kids are 17 and 19. My son is 19 and my daughter is 17 right now. So my son was a young teen, maybe he was 13, 14. And really in that, anybody out there who has boys knows they go through this period where they just stop communicating with you. They grunt and they're smelly and they lock themselves in their rooms and they it's just all of a sudden there's this completely other person and playing video games and as parents, we were wondering, oh my gosh, what's wrong? Started that future casting. What does this mean for him? What's wrong? Is there something wrong? Is there better parenting we should do? And I noticed that the more my husband and I tried to help, the farther Max got from us. And one day it just dawned on me, oh my gosh, we are talking at this kid. And the things we are saying at him, as much as we're trying to be helpful, are all about this future that we're projecting on him. And so I think it was then that I really started to look back to moments that were better with both of my kids. And they were the moments where I was just with them in that particular instance. And, right then it was hard, but I started to sort of shift. And rather than asking him questions that were more to satisfy what I needed to know to make me feel better, right? I asked him questions about things he was interested in. I sat and watched him play video games. I asked him questions about his video games. Sometimes I just sat there in silence with him. And little by little, he started coming back into a real relationship with me. Little by little, he started sharing with me so much more than I ever would have dared to ask for. And he, I think, was able to do that because he didn't sense any fear in me. He could see that I just dug him, right? I just thought he was awesome exactly as he was. And his comfort level rose and the armor fell away. And probably the biggest lesson of my parenting life.
This really speaks to something that I run into and speak about with the clients I work with too. Asking questions and getting curious without attachment to the outcome. It sounds like that's exactly what you were doing.
Yeah, exactly what I was doing. And it is, and I, as you know, I'm a coach. I work with individuals and professionals on this very concept, right? All the time to help people grow and develop. And yet, as a mom, so much harder. It is so much harder to do this stuff when it comes to our kids because, obviously we love them so much and the stakes we believe are so high, but they're not, They're really not. They're going to be just fine.
Like the stories we tell ourselves, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's, I call it future casting.
Yeah.
And the slippery slope.
Yes. So now, when did you become a coach? When did that start for you?
I started my business almost 5 years ago.
Okay. So you were a mom first.
I was a mom first. Yeah.
So what brought you to the place where you decided you were going to reach out and help others?
I think it was like many women in their 40s, which is where I was at the time. I had done some really cool things. I built a really successful business with my husband. I was a national spokesperson for the American Red Cross before that. I had started this family. I was mostly a stay-at-home mom, even though I was selling and marketing for my husband's company. And I started to realize I was entangled in everybody else's life. Like there was not any real me that was identifiable by me anymore. So their emotions, their ups, their downs became my complete compass point. And I was in service to my husband, my kids, the business 24/7. And I got there, Laura, because I wanted it. Don't get me wrong. It remains the most important part of my life.
Right.
And yet I realized that in losing myself, my ability to serve was declining and my own happiness and fulfillment was in the toilet. And I was not becoming the model that I wanted to be for my kids, especially my daughter. And so I started, my own exploration. I've always read, research. I took a lot of classes. I went back to my psychology roots and really discovered that the way to bring myself back was all in thinking. It was all in the thoughts that I had. And as I started to shift those thoughts, the emotions shifted with it, the confidence came back. And, once you've had that kind of a revelation in your own life, you want to share it with other people. You want to teach other people what you know. At least that was the case for me.
I love it. We're going to stop here. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to pick up on this because this leads right into what I want to talk about. And I want to thank you and honor you for sharing that part of your story.
Thanks.
Please let everyone know where they can find you.
Yeah, my website is my name. It's Wendy Perrotti, PERROTTI.com.
Great. And when we get back, we're going to continue on this discussion of knowing your self-worth matters. And I'm Laura Greco, and you're listening to SuperPower Mommas. So hold on. We'll be right back.
Are you here to change the world? Do you talk about things like vibration, frequency, awakening, and consciousness? Are you pretty sure you have superpowers? The SuperPower Net is unlike normal coaching programs and conscious communities. We provide training, intuitive guidance, peer-to-peer learning, intensive one-on-one coaching, and a high vibrational network of people just like you. When you join the net, you get 24/7 access to a collaborative group of people who support you as you master your personal power and unlock your superpowers. If you're ready to use your superpowers to change the world, then join the SuperPower Net today. Visit superpowerexperts.com/thenet to learn more.
Welcome back. I'm Laura Greco of SuperPower Mommas, and we're speaking with Wendy Perrotti on the topic of knowing your self-worth matters. And you were just talking about that, Wendy, when we took our break, and your journey to where you are now. So I'd like to continue that, because my next question really is about a mama's autonomy and that maintaining that and how important that is. So would you like to expand on what you shared?
Sure. I found that this thing that was happening to me is so common among women. It's common with my friends. It's common with my clients. We're so attached to the outcomes of the people we love. We're so in service to the people that we love that our own outcomes and emotions become intermingled with theirs. And it can be paralyzing.
Yeah.
Your kid leaves for school and they're weeping, right? Because it was a bad morning as they go down the driveway. And, as was the case with me, I wasn't functioning for the rest of the day. I would be like wringing my hands over, oh my gosh, what did I do wrong? What's their day like now? None of that serves them or us.
Right.
Right. So learning how to compartmentalize, learning how to shift focus, even when we're emotionally triggered, I think is critical in gaining that sense of autonomy.
Yes. And it's interesting to me that there came a point in your life where you realized how enmeshed you were in the lives of everyone else. And I don't know, did you look in the mirror and say, who am I? I know I did that.
If that is a long story, we need more than 30 minutes for that one. But yeah, there was that pivotal moment where I was standing at the kitchen sink in this horribly ugly yellow bathrobe and, watching the bits of food go down the disposal and thinking, my God, where have I gone? It was at the end of a dinner party, and I felt that I had nothing to contribute, and I really felt lost at that moment. And I think that those pivotal moments come for us in small bits and pieces, and it's so important to listen to the wisdom of those moments and take your life back, reclaim yourself, in those moments. It's not easy, but I'm telling you right now, if I can do it, anybody can do it.
And how do you feel that like when you observe what happened in your family, did you notice a shift in the rest of your family when you made this decision to move in a different direction for yourself?
Yeah. So again, this is another really ticklish part for women, because we like to keep things smooth, and we create a world of expectations around us, right? We are in service and in love with our family, and we create expectations for them of us around that. And so when we start to shift the way that we do that, sometimes there's pushback. You know, when I got an office in my home and my kids needed to learn that there were some times, because I was with a client, that unless it was an emergency, like I'm bleeding or there's a broken bone kind of emergency, it's not okay to knock, right? There was pushback. And they said the horrible things that you don't want anybody to say to you. You don't love me anymore, you know. Yeah. You're not there. I miss you. Oh my gosh. It's in those moments that we really have to stand strong and recognize that in being our own best version of ourselves, we are being the best mom. We are being in the greatest service to our families. And then we have to walk that talk too. Once the door opens and the little feet, they're not little anymore, but the little feet, or now big feet, come stampering up the stairs to my office. Yeah. It's important to close the laptop, to turn the chair, and to give them your full focus. Right. And in that, you're building a whole new level of trust, a whole new level of modeling also.
I love it. I love it because it reminds me of something I read a long time ago about being fully engaged and fully disengaged. And it was written actually by 2 sports coaches who shifted to life coaching. And they were highlighting that exact thing that you're talking about. When you're fully engaged in your work and what you're doing or what satisfies you, you service it well. And when it's time to spend time with your family, it's also a service to you and to them. And you totally shifted it. From what I can hear, you totally took the shift, like I think you said this already, compartmentalized your time so that you knew when you were on in one place and not on another. And that's beautiful.
You know, this too is a skill.
Yes.
And it's not something that any of us come by naturally. It happened for me because I trained myself to be able to do it. And like with anything with our brain, we train ourselves to do things by repetition. And I'd be happy to share a really cool mindfulness technique that I used then.
Yes.
On myself. And I use this. This is one of my foundation tools that I give to all of my clients when we start out with. And I learned it from a woman named Millie Greco, and she learned it directly from Thich Nhat Hanh, who is a Zen master and a Vietnamese monk, all around amazing human being. It's called One Stone. And the cool thing about this technique is that it's kind of a toe in the water to meditation. So it's a mindfulness technique that can give you a lot of the same benefits of other contemplative techniques like meditation. And it also helps you rewire your brain for focus. And so in practicing this tiny little technique that I'm going to give you, you're teaching your brain to focus on the thing that you're choosing in a really simple way. And what happens is when you've built that muscle through repetition over and over again, when the thing that's pulling your focus away is strong, like emotional strong, right? You're worried about someone in your family, and that's drawing your focus away. You've now built this mental focus muscle that says, okay, I recognize that. And when it's time to be there, I'll be there for that. But right now I'm choosing to focus on this thing that's in front of me. And you have that mental muscle to be able to do it. Cool, right?
That's so cool. And I can so see it. And it really, I'm going to let you share that because I think everybody should know this. And I am aware of it because I was on one of your classes and learned this. But I wanted to just highlight one point that you began this journey because you recognized you also had worth. And and that your self-worth matters, because when you're developing a muscle like this, I would think that it's also very helpful to have a backing that, yes, I am worth taking this moment to do this thing, and I can make decisions that are intuitively servicing each of us, right?
You know, I call that your naked truth.
Your naked truth.
Right?
Ooh, cool.
We've all got this naked truth, this truth that like we hold in our heart behind our rib cage, that we don't say out loud to other people, that we don't say out loud even to ourselves through most of our lives. And it is our own individual bigness, right? Whatever that is. And for some people it's attached to fame and fortune and relative bigness. And to others, it's much more quiet and contemplative and a bigness of depth, right? But for each of us, recognizing that naked truth, facing it head on, and knowing that that is our purpose here.
Yeah.
That's why we're here, is the thing that powers all of this other stuff.
Yes. And that you are worth it to pursue that, because really your children, your family, the world is missing a piece if you're not sharing that gift.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, could you share with us this great tool that you have?
Yeah. So I learned to do this with a stone, and I always use stones because I've got baskets of them all over my house. I pick them up on the beaches all over the place.
Yeah.
But you can use anything. I have a client who uses her wedding ring. You can use any tangible object to do this technique. It only takes a few seconds, so you can do it many, many times every day without it interrupting a busy schedule.
Right.
And there are two important parts to it. The first part is that you're going to be breathing, intentionally breathing through this little technique. Good deep breaths. And we want you to do this technique for about the period of 10 deep breaths. Now, it doesn't matter if it's really only 5 or 30, doesn't matter. But just as a way of timing yourself, whatever you happen to think 10 deep breaths is, that's about how long you're going to do this exercise for. So you start with the breathing. Once you get a couple of breaths in, you're going to focus on the item in your hand. So I'm holding a stone in my hand right now.
I have one too.
Okay, so you're going to think about it. And if you were like inside my head, I'll do this out loud. You let yourself think whatever you want. My stone is flat. I remember the beach I picked it up on. It's kind of white. When the sun hits it, it looks like there's a little glitter in there. You allow your mind to think anything it wants about the thing you're choosing to focus on. And then we know what happens. A million other thoughts come in, right? My foot hurts. Am I doing this right? This is stupid, whatever, right? Whatever thoughts come through, your job is to simply recognize them. Oh, I'm distracted. And make your very next thought about the stone. It's a white stone. It's a round stone. It's as simple as that. And you'll do that several times within that period of 10 deep breaths. Several times you'll notice that you're distracted and you'll shift your thinking back to the stone. And it's in that moment of shift, that the neural pathway, the new one, is firing. It's in that moment of recognition, ooh, I'm distracted, without judgment. And so I'm going to make my very next thought about this stone. I choose what my next thought is. That's where you're building the neural pathways. You're building that mental muscle to focus on what you choose. Right? How cool is that?
That is cool. That's powerful, actually.
Yeah. And it's so simple. And, I tell my clients, attach it to something you already do 5 to 10 times a day.
Yep.
Whether get in your car or go to the bathroom or drink a bottle of water. And each time you do one of that trigger event, do a little one stone. It only takes a couple of seconds.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And I love because it gives a break. And I think about our listeners, many of them are busy mothers who may or may not be working, who may or may not be, doing, running children around or whatever it's happening, or just even beginning to discover herself in a greater way. And how this can really bring her back into focus.
Yeah.
For me, it's vital because there's a lot of shifts and turns in a day, especially as a mother. There's not any one thing you're doing. There's always many things that are happening, and it's a great way to bring you back to oneness. Thank you so much.
So easy to do, and you get that pause and the breathing right there. Oh, it sets off your parasympathetic nervous system, so it stops the cortisol, your blood pressure lowers. You get all of those physiological markers just because you pause to breathe.
And you can include your children in it too.
Right. Oh my gosh. I gave Lila, when she was little, a heart-shaped stone, a shiny, polished heart-shaped stone, and taught her how to do it. And she would do it whenever she got nervous at school, it's a great technique for kids.
That's great. That's really great. Thank you for that gift. Wendy, very much. We're coming to the end of our interview, but I wanted to ask you this question. In the work that you're doing and the things that you're sharing, which are obviously beautiful, what do you see as the big picture of what work like yours is going to bring to the earth?
I think it comes back to that hard-won superpower of seeing others as whole. The more that we can see everyone as whole in the moment, see them as they are without judgment, and love them as they are, that's the antidote to everything, right? That's where it's the antidote to fear. It's the antidote to hate. It's the antidote to loneliness, which is epidemic in our world right now. Right? And it delivers us the gift of true, meaningful, deep connection with people. And so I really think that teaching people to see themselves and others in that way can absolutely change the world. And it doesn't mean that we have to tolerate behaviors that don't serve. I can see you as whole. I can see my kids as whole and love and adore them and still not tolerate certain behaviors.
Yeah, very important. And I was thinking too, as you were speaking, that to this truth, basically, is that it also requires a trust in ourselves that we're safe and enough, and a trust in others that they are safe and enough.
Yes.
And they're a dominion on their own. Wow. Very, very powerful things that you shared with us. Thank you so much for your gift of the tool. And ever since you taught that to us, I've always implemented the breath. And I love the stone. And I talk about this all the time, is attaching this new habit to something you're already doing as a habit. And it could be sitting in the car waiting at a light if that's what you need to do, like anywhere, anytime.
Yeah. The more you flex that muscle, the more available it will be for you when you need it, right?
Yeah.
When you're really triggered, when you're really feeling hot and emotional.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too that what you speak to here, and I just, before we go, I love that, I believe that parenting is like one of the biggest and very important jobs that are being done on the earth. It's right up there with, big things. It's not a small cast off, oh, that's just what we do because we've been doing it for centuries. It's really very important. And I also believe that along with that, servicing that where needed. So if help is needed to get these patterns in place, if help is needed to figure out your own self-worth and how that matters, that actually is an investment, not just in you, but in your entire family.
Absolutely.
So
it changes everything.
Yeah, it does, as you can attest to.
Mm-hmm.
So, Wendy, where can people find you again? Please let them know.
My website is my name. It's www.wendyperrotti, WendyPerrotti.com.
Thank you so much for being a guest on the show. And I would love to have you back and expand on some of these topics that we only touched on this last time. So would you like to come back and talk with us again sometime?
I'd love to, Laura. I love chatting you up.
Yes. And thank you all for listening to our show today as we discussed how knowing your self-worth really does matter. I also want to just sign off and say, everyone, to especially your moms out there, to love yourselves for the treasure that you are, to really look to and hone your superpowers, and just go out and be you. That's what your children need and want from you, your spouse, and the world. So I love you. Until next time.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the Superpower Quiz today.